dramatic way. Did I not do that? HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members, so we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. So, Carol, I'll leave it to you.
Lynn.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. Let me read Lisa's bio. Lisa M Laniewski is the author of God Winks and Amber Waves, a mother's transformative journey through grief, love, and purpose. Her professional experience includes classroom teachings with special needs children, as well as on-site management of residential facilities for mentally and physically challenged children and adults. Drawing on her advanced degree in both education and counseling, as well as her personal experience after the death of her only daughter, Lisa shares hope, resources, and honest reflections to help others navigate grief. Through her writing, speaking, and personal connections, she offers encouragement and gentle guidance to those seeking healing, growth, and meaning after loss. Welcome, Lisa. We are here to talk to Lisa about her book, God Winks and Amber Waves. Lisa, why don't you start? Hello, why don't you start? We are thrilled to have you by telling us a little bit about yourself, your beautiful daughter, your beautiful family, and a little bit about your book without giving too much away.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I appreciate it very much. My name is Lisa Laniewski. I'm the mother of 5 children, 4 of whom are in spirit, and one of whom is still here with me. My adult daughter, Amber, is on the other side, and she has been there since 2014. After Amber was born in 1989, I had 3 other babies that never got to see light here on Earth. And then I had my son, my Z. So I had my Amber and I had my Zach. My family was complete. And then in 2014, my A went back home again. And so I have been on a journey just like all of the other parents that are part of this wonderful organization. From the moment that I saw her after she died, I knew that that wasn't my daughter. But I also knew that there's absolutely no way to take all that intelligence, all that sass, all that wit, all that love and kindness, and just have it go away. So I knew she was somewhere, and I just started immediately starting to figure out where it was that she was. And that's been my journey for the last 11 years. For the most part, I was serving humanity, I would say, by serving other people and helping their causes. And this last year, I decided that it was time to get out from behind that curtain and get out there and share my story and my experience and hope with other people. And so that's where Amber Wink, or God Winks and Amber Waves, that's where that came from. I was never going to write a book ever, but I had a title for a long time in my head. Ever since I heard the word God Winks, which is something that was coined by Squire Rushnell years and years ago. A God wink is, for anybody that's not familiar, it's just kind of a coincidence that's not a coincidence. It's when something happens, and a lot of people would call it a coincidence, but in your bones, that was something divine that just happened. And so I decided I didn't have to ask for permission to use the word God winks because I used it as God winks. And when God winks, Amber waves. And I had that title in my head for a long time. But this past year, when I started taking David Kessler's grief educator course, I decided this is time. This is what I really want to do. I've been doing it with Helping Parents Heal for many years as a caring listener. Um, but as Helping Parents Heal has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, thank goodness we've gotten more and more caring listeners. So where I used to get a lot of phone calls, I don't get nearly as many anymore. And I really wanted to continue working to help people, especially parents like the parents who helped me. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to do that. And this is also the time, if I'm going to do this course and devote 12 weeks to it, um, I'm going to just do this. I'm going to write this book. And it was a medium who, a lot of us, when we go to mediums, they say, oh, are you writing a book? Or you're going to write a book, and because so many of us do. But I always said, no, no, I'm never going to I don't want to write a book. I'm not interested in writing a book. I have nothing original to say. There's so many books on the topic. But the medium said, you've already written the book. You just haven't put it on paper yet. And I thought about that because I had journals and journals of events, signs, synchronicities. I had all the messages from the mediums and the transcripts and all that stuff collected. And I feel, or I felt at the time, I should say, that my daughter really wanted me to put this out there. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to put it together. It turns out, and I can explain a little bit later, that's not exactly what she wanted, but I got the message. So that's how God Winks and Amber Waves, a mother's transformative journey through grief, love, and purpose came to be.
Oh, I love that. I love that name, God Winks. It is perfect. And
Thanks.
I know you said journaling. I know that journaling is something we all do. It helps us remember everything, and I think it's so therapeutic. Writing the book, I'm sure, was therapeutic for you.
It actually was very therapeutic.
It was
Yeah.
very therapeutic. So, how would you describe? I mean, do you have when did you become aware of these winks, these signs in your life? Would you say that it was following Amber's passing? Would you say, I know you said you had other children
Yeah.
after Amber, before your son, but
Yes.
were you aware of this before Amber, or was it her passing that kind of opened that door and
So
led
what
you?
I've because I've been asked that question before, I think that I was aware that there was such a thing as mediumship. I was aware that there was this man named John Edward, and he had his television show, and I got to see it a few times, and I was interested in that kind of a thing. After my father died back in 1995, I believe that I had a sign shortly after he died, but I wasn't really looking for signs. I wasn't really aware of them. And I also thought that mediumship was not something that the normal person could avail themselves of. I didn't know that there were, this huge continuum of mediums from, not so good to absolutely incredible, and that we all had access to that. I had no idea. I had no idea. Um, when my daughter died, it was during Thanksgiving week in 2014, and she was out of state, working and living out of state, and it was Thanksgiving week, and um, the aftermath of her death was being investigated, and so they were not able to release her to us until after Thanksgiving. So there were several days that we didn't get a chance to see her at all. However, the very, very first day that she died, um, my husband was on the telephone with the police, and we weren't even in our home. Let me say, since this is Thanksgiving week, we had already left to go to be with family and to take care of some pets and things like that while they were doing other things. So we were in a different state, and they were all gone. And my husband was on the phone because we couldn't find my daughter for a good 24 hours. And I knew, I could tell from listening to him that this is what, and I was bracing myself. And so he got off the phone and he came over, and we were standing in the kitchen of my sister-in-law's home. And there was a big window in front of us. And outside of the window, they have a very large stone wall. And my husband was facing the window, and my back was to the window, and we were holding each other and, crying and everything else. And all of a sudden, my husband reached into his pocket and took out his phone and took a picture through the window. And I was not happy. I was upset. What is he doing? And there was a bird sitting on the stone wall looking into the kitchen. And my husband said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "No, it's a bird." And he said, "It's a red-tailed hawk. And it is extremely unusual that they're going to come down this close. It's directly looking at us in the window. We have the picture. We still have this picture." I didn't know anything about hawks. He said, "Okay, this is the end of November. This should not be happening." And I was too devastated to know, to recognize in any way, shape, or form about it. It seemed to mean something to him. It's been a sign that my husband has received over and over and over and over again through the years. He's always thought, that's my sign. And which is great. I wouldn't know a hawk from a robin. I mean, I don't know birds. It's never been my sign. But he's always felt really strongly about it. And several years later, I think this probably was maybe like 2017, we went to see Maureen Hancock, uh, who is a medium here up in New England. We went to a gallery reading, and I bought her book, and I was all excited, and I was going to have her sign it. And we sat and we listened to all of these wonderful, wonderful readings, and we didn't get one. And we were all kind of like, "Oh, well, we understand there's 100 people here. Of course, not everyone's going to get a reading." But I wanted my book signed. So we stood in line. And when it came our time to go up, Maureen took the book and she turned around and she went to sign it on the table. And then she turned around. Now, we have never met her before, never wrote to her, never had a reading, nothing. She took my husband by the shirt like this, and she looked right in his eyes and she said, "You know that's her every single time you see that red-tailed hawk." And my husband just, because she hadn't discussed hawks the whole evening with anybody else, we hadn't even gotten a chance to say anything to her, but that was all the validation he needed, and he received that the very first day. Also, the very first night after she died, I was laying in bed waiting for my husband to come in. I was, crying and everything else, finally fell asleep. And in the middle of the night, I heard three really distinct and separate knocks on the roof of the bedroom that I was staying in. This wasn't my home again, and there was nobody else there. They were very distinct. And I considered that a God wink because I immediately sat up and I knew I'd never heard anything like that before. It wasn't like a branch scraping, it was very distinct. And I acknowledged it right away. And the very next night, I went about 5 miles away and spent the night at my sister's home, where my mom lived with my sister at the time. And of course, they were devastated. But the home that we were staying at was on my husband's side of the family, so we didn't have them over. But I went and I stayed and I laid in the bed with my mom. This is the second night after she died. And the exact same thing happened again in the middle of the night. I sat up and I said, "Now I know it's you, and you never have to wake me up like that again, because that's a little freaky to me. You don't have to." And it's never happened again in 11 years. So
Wow.
they started the very first night before I even really knew what signs were, or that, I could look for them, or because they just came to me immediately. And the early days were followed just by sign after sign after sign. And the only thing that I'm really grateful for is that I had the presence of mind to always write them down. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and
Wow.
he did say that to me relatively early on, within months. They said, "You have to make sure you write everything down because you won't remember." And I thought, how could you not remember? This is your child. Of course I'll remember, but it's true. Like now I look and I think, was that 2016 or 2018? So it's wonderful to have those things written down. And I would encourage everybody to do that.
Absolutely. And they come on so strong, or they try to. And some of us, I've had people say, "Well, I don't get signs." And I think it's just because, sometimes your grief is blocking it. But but it sounds like you recognize them immediately, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I
Do
did.
you so you've had lots and lots of them. Do you feel that you have to be open and spiritual to receive these signs, or you think that we all receive them, we just don't really see them?
Well, I mean, I honestly don't know the answer to that, to tell you the truth, because I was receiving signs before I knew to be open to receiving signs. Um, we just had an awful lot of synchronicities of things that happened, like when we were studying about electrical signs and things like that, it just seemed like it was happening all around us. And then when we moved on to something else, that kind of happened. So I don't know. I do hear from, some people that say, you're so lucky because, you receive so many signs. I ask my child for signs all the time. I ask them to do this or this. And, I really can't explain that other than that I do think that sometimes when that real heaviness is there, when it's just so heavy, um, I think it's hard to even think about what's going to happen in the next hour. It's hard. It's hard.
Absolutely.
It's hard to be aware. And if you are looking for one particular sign, like I went for the longest time with mediums, that I was going to think you were a great medium when you told me the very unique name of my daughter's teddy bear. And if you could do that, then, because I know she would tell you that. Well, what I've come to understand now is that my human daughter would do that, you know, but my daughter was only here as a human being on earth for 25 years. She is a soul, just like we are all souls. And when you are in a place of perfection and you know that, we don't, we come from perfection. When you're there, of course, all you're going to tell those you love is how much you love them, how much you miss them. Maybe they want to say something about sorry, and they're going to tell you the things that are important to them to tell you. And they're not going to just come. And so, I mean, I've gotten a lot of really evidential stuff. I still have not gotten the name of the teddy bear, but I've got
Yeah.
a lot of other evidential stuff. So
Yes.
to answer
And
your question, I think that you need to have some level of awareness.
yes. And I believe we all get the signs regardless, but I do agree with you. You have to be aware. You have to be aware. And because when Tyler passed away, I wasn't spiritual, and yet he came on strong, as did your daughter. And I wanted to be aware. So I started opening myself up. But we're all different, and that's okay. But I do think our kids work so hard, all of them, to try to let us know we are okay, we are here. And it's unfortunate when someone does go to a medium. I mean, we've all done it. I did the same thing, and you're wanting something in particular, but I think our kids know what what we need, so they're going to say what we need, maybe not what we want. So I agree with that.
That's why I did include in the back of the book, I put a couple different appendixes in there so that
Mhm.
one of them was about mediumship and how do you find a medium? Because I made so many mistakes early on. And one of the reasons that I made so many mistakes early on is because I didn't have a new tribe to teach me. And the people around me, my loved ones, my friends in my Amber days, had absolutely no idea how to help me in any way, shape, or form. So they certainly didn't know anything about mediumship. So whenever I would hear the name of a medium, I had no discernment whatsoever. I just, oh my gosh, I have to try to find this person. Yeah, so in some ways, um, I don't scare off very easily. So, and sometimes, maybe it's just like a boundary issue. I don't know. But when I would hear about somebody, I didn't care. I would write to them. I would Facebook message them. I would do whatever I had to. In my mind, I never really thought, oh my gosh, how many people are doing this? How many people are writing? Is this appropriate to do? I just did it, you know. And
Yeah.
some of them were really not good at all, and they set me back a little bit. So I came to learn that there are things that you want to look for in a medium, things you want to avoid, ways you want to behave when you go to a medium, things you don't want to do, and giving things away. You want to be sure that you're not giving information to the medium. You want to be sure that your child or your loved one is giving information to the medium and they're giving it to you. It's
Absolutely.
early on, I didn't know any of that.
Well, and that's true. And like you said, especially a new parent, they could get real a bad medium could really set them back. But we do have, our provider list, and I'll say that because we work hard. These mediums, they have to go through a pretty intense process to get certified and get on the list. So hopefully, most the mediums that are on our HPH site are all very reputable. But we always say, until early on, of course, we need that channel, we need that person. But I we all have that ability to connect with our kids. So none of us, we all can connect with our kids, and it's fun to get that validation sometimes from a third person. But I know that I've worked so hard, and I feel like I'm talking to my son all day long. And even me as a human, sometimes I'm like, is that you? Is that me? But then he'll prove to me that it's him. So we all can do that. And speaking of doing that, because it takes some work. Do you meditate? How do you connect with Amber? What do you do?
So, in truth, I do not meditate in the traditional way that most people do. Um, my husband and I, we do different kinds of gratitude things, which try to put us in that place where we can be so open to everything. We've done some silly things lately. We'll go through the alphabet. We'll go like A to Z, and we'll just keep going back and forth, something that we're grateful for, anything that comes to mind. And then whoever started the first time, the other person starts. And we do those kinds of things. I mean, sometimes we'll sit and in quiet and we'll try. I just find that, like you, and I even talk about it in the book, I talk with Amber all day long, all day long. And what I receive back many, many times, not all the time, but many, many times, is uh, not in her voice, but in her tone. The words that come are not my words. Especially like one thing that she does a lot is she teases me and kind of like makes fun of me if I have an error of some kind, any kind of error, if I trip, anything like that, because she was always real light like that. Now, I might want to let out a curse word or something, and that's not what comes to me, in my head. So I just talk about her all the time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, I mean, I wish I could tell you that I sit for 20 minutes and do that. I don't.
No, and that's absolutely okay. There's no rules, I mean, meditation could be taking a walk, taking a walk,
Absolutely.
quieting your mind. It's just, I just feel like when we are in a good space, they always say nature is the perfect vibration. So if we're raising our vibration, whatever that means, whether it means, sitting in quiet, whether it means yoga, or whether it means just taking a walk, that's meditation. And I think that really definitely helps us to connect to our kids. Do
It
you think
does.
that
Yeah.
some of the signs come with clarity, or do you sometimes have to question what you're getting?
I think that some of them are really clear, and I think others become clearer over time. That's kind of how it's worked for me. Sometimes I think that what we receive is always what we're supposed to receive. I just don't think
Absolutely.
that we always get it. If that makes sense. I
I would agree.
And one of the things that I talk about in the book is in 2018, I believe it was, I had a summertime reading with Suzanne Giesemann, and it was a phone. My husband was at our house in Maine, I was at our house in Florida, and we all kind of connected via Zoom. And Suzanne is wonderful, and it was a very, very good reading. And then as she was getting close to the end, she started laughing and she said, your daughter's showing me her affinity for frogs. And, you were just talking about nature. My daughter, like, she's not a camper, she's a glamper. She wasn't a real nature person other than taking a walk. And so I was like, no, I don't know anything about frogs. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm seeing them on her bed. I'm seeing a bench sitting on shelves. Da, da, da. She goes, they're not real frogs. They're mostly stuffed and this. And then I said, no, that is absolutely. And she said, oh, okay. Well, I can't take that back because I'm seeing it even more now, more now. So she said, well, she didn't live near you. Maybe there's a joke there with a friend or something like that. So I contacted her friends after it was all over. And I mean, everybody laughed. They were just like, no, Amber wouldn't. Well, that very next day, Suzanne contacted me and she said, you can stop searching for the frogs. I'm really, really sorry. That was an interloper who came into our reading, and I had no idea what that was. She said that was an interloper whose loved one had asked for him to come through her, Suzanne Giesman, on this particular day because it's his first anniversary. And he did. He did. And they called him Froggy. And I was like, okay, that's really weird. Never gave it another thought until 8 months later. I was reading the Zamet Report, which is a newsletter that I get every single week, and they talk about a lot of spiritual things. And there was a woman on there who was talking about studying under Suzanne Giesman. And I watched the first minute or two and I wasn't interested, so I just went through the rest of the report. And then something spoke to me and said, go back and watch her. And so I did. This was now March of 2019, so it's maybe 8 months later. And I'm watching it and I'm listening to her and I'm like, oh my God, this is the woman whose loved one came into my reading. And she was talking about Froggy, Froggy, Froggy. And I'm like, this can't be. So just the way that I am, I found her on social media. I messaged her and I said, did your fiance pass away on July the 7th of last year? I'm not a crazy person, but I think I might have had a message that was meant for you. And within 2 minutes, she got back to me and she was like, call me, blah, blah, blah. And she is now a medium. We're friends. And yeah.
Wow. Isn't
So
that
I had no
amazing
idea
how
what
things
it was all
work out?
about. But it was just, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He came through Suzanne Giesman on that day, but Suzanne Giesman wasn't talking to Cheryl that day. She was talking to me. So
They find a way. They find a way for sure. And it's interesting when you said that you can tell when your daughter's talking to you because it's not your words. And that's what I explain to people when I talk about hearing my son. I said, don't misunderstand. It's not his voice. It's but it comes so fast and it's not anything that I would be saying. It's just I could just tell the difference. But it's just I've also been on this journey for 10 years. So it's there's time and work and we get better and better at connecting with them. Would you say that there's a connection between suffering and hardship and the appearance of these signs? Like, would you say there's a certain season that you see more or?
I think that at least this is my experience. They've been there when I need them. They've been there when I need them. And when I'm totally focused on something else, they may still be there and I may not be receptive to them. So I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah,
not sure about that.
yeah. Well, and it's funny because early on, we just are obsessing. We want the signs, the signs, the signs. And then, like you said, I'm sure they're there, but if we're not needing them and we're doing okay, we probably just don't see them.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
I know that you are a grief educator now. And can you just talk a little bit about that and talk about how helping? Because I always say when we help others, it's also so healing for ourselves.
So, the subtitle of my book. So I very purposefully limited the signs and the messages, the synchronicities, because I wasn't going to take all of the journals that I had and just, vomit up a whole bunch of signs for everybody. That wasn't my intention. My whole intention with writing the book was to show over this 11-year journey, all of these things happened and what happened to me because of those things happening. And so what's happened to me is that I have completely changed my focus. I feel like I mean, I think we all probably feel like we're decent people. I always felt like I was a good person, but I came to understand love and forgiveness and service in completely different ways over the past 11 years. And I talked to somebody recently about this in another podcast. So if anybody was there, I apologize. But to me, it's kind of like if you're having a problem with alcohol or if you're having a problem with gambling or something like that, and you find the courage to go into the rooms where you can get help. If you're having a problem with alcohol, you typically don't go over in the corner to the person who's shaking so much because they just had a drink 2 hours ago. That's not where your healing is. And it's not that there's anything wrong, everyone that's in the room has a problem with alcohol, but you want to go toward the people in the front who are smiling and laughing and telling stories and look healthy because they have some semblance of healing. And so, that's where when I started to find my tribe, and some people are like, they get upset because the old tribe or the friends and everything around them. If you think about it, go back to when you had a baby, go back to birth. If you were one of the first in your circle or the second or whatever to give birth, to have your first child, you very quickly found a new tribe because all your friends who don't have, they're still out clubbing, they're sleeping late, you love them, but your group has to expand. And it's the same thing after your other friends then just don't really get it. They don't get the fact that you want to sit there and talk about your child babbling or whatever they're doing. It's not that they don't love you, they just don't get you. And so you find others. And it's the same after our children pass away. We have such expectations for our family and our friends around us, but they can't help us to heal. They can be there, they can be close, but they can't give us the healing. So we have to get that from people who are farther down the road than us. And until I did that, I really didn't have a whole lot of healing. So I I've learned on this journey that, what you have received, you now have to start giving it back out. And so that's why I did David's course. It's funny. I have a master's degree in counseling. I've used that. I've been a teacher. I had not one day about grief in a master's degree for counseling, not one day. We talked about, relationship breakup and all different kinds of addictions and depression and everything else, but never about grief. And so when the opportunity came to take David's course, I decided, this is my time. I've been working with others and I've been working with helping parents heal. I was a caring listener. I still am a caring listener. It's just that, back in the day when you were getting a phone call a week, it's just really different now because that group has expanded. Thank God it's expanded so, so much. But I have other friends now in the program who send people my way because I do online talking with people and educating and helping them to find resources. And I decided I'll write the book at the same time. Like I said, I thought it was my daughter's idea. Came to find out it wasn't. And I will tell you that at the end, okay?
Well, that is, I agree about finding your tribe, that's for certain, because others don't get it. And even other grief groups, that's what I love about helping parents heal. I mean, just in the name, helping parents heal, it's telling you what we're about. And I know for me, even other parents that had children pass away, if they told me, oh, it never gets better, that's like the worst thing you can hear, because who wants to think that we're going to spend our life feeling like we do early on? I mean, nobody.
Absolutely.
So it's so beautiful because we focus on knowing that our kids are here, finding ways to connect with them, looking for those signs. And then, of course, there's the certified mediums that help for those that have that block where they're not finding it. They get those validations. But
Yeah.
do you believe, well, you talked a little bit about Sonia a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that in your book? Or
Yes, I did. I talked about Sonia. So I met Sonia Rinaldi in 2018. Uh,
Mhm.
I heard about her in 2017. And so, I kind of familiarized myself a little bit, had no idea what that field, instrumental transcommunication. I was like, that's kind of crazy. But we had already had some things that were happening electronically. So I was interested in her. And when I met with her, and we spent some time together on a project. I fell in love with her. I fell in love with the work she does. She just does so much for so many for nothing. And she's been doing that for 40 years. And I ended up being her assistant for a good 6.5 years here in the US, promoting all of that work. And it was very fulfilling to me. It was just that I really wanted to focus my time on working with moms and dads who've lost their children. And I hate to say lost their children because your children aren't lost anywhere.
Mhm.
In fact, I tend to use the word died. I know that that is not, I just don't, I just think that birth and death are part of a continuum. They're part of the design. It's, I don't like to, I, I don't think that the word dying, should have any bad connotations to it because it's one of the only things that we all have in common. We were all born and we are all going to die. And when we're born, we celebrate love's arrival. And when we die, everyone else celebrates love's endurance. That's all.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and it's just the physical body. The physical body dies, but our spirit never does.
spirit never dies. And I've also come to not get so hung up on the name that we gave. We named that soul that came here. And that's just how everyone referred to that soul. Maybe they bought into it, maybe they didn't. But what they did do is they came here and did absolutely everything that they were supposed to do, which was embody so much love in us that when they leave, we honestly don't know if we can go on.
Exactly.
That's, that is what this whole entire thing is about. And this journey that we're all on afterwards is just to come to understand that love endures across,
Exactly.
no different than we would not stop loving them if they moved to Japan. We wouldn't think that they were gone forever, even though we don't see them. They're there. We wish the best for them. This is just another part of their journey. And once I made that transition, I was able to be open to all of the things that my daughter's teaching me from the other side. And she's teaching me how to love better and how to serve better. And that's what I'm doing. So,
Everything you've said, I completely agree with. I know that I've always said our kids are our greatest teachers. They really are. And they're all about, I'm a caring listener as well. And so it's funny when I talk to these parents and they'll start telling me, well, you just don't understand. My child was special. They were so kind. Everyone loved them. And I'm thinking, yes, yes, that's how they are. That's why they're now on the other side because they completed what they came here to do. And they're our teachers and they crack us open. And so spiritually, I never believed any of the things that I now know. So
that's right.
I agree with everything you've said. Do you believe that I know that there's always, I think if we look inside and realize there is a bigger purpose, there's a bigger story here. Do you believe in a soul plan? Do you believe that this was kind of in divine order? And it's okay either way. We always tell people that, you know, um, there is
I
no right or
absolutely
wrong.
believe it. I absolutely believe it. I didn't always believe it, but I absolutely believe. And I absolutely knew that my daughter knew that her time here on earth was coming to an end. Just 48 hours before she died, she said something to me on the phone about we were watching The Voice, and there was someone who was singing, a young girl, and she was singing. So, no, it wasn't The Voice. Sorry. I think it was one of those singy shows. And we were both watching it. And I made a comment to her, and I said, when you have a child someday, I want to be called Nana. And then this is very uncharacteristic of her snapping because she was always just very funny. And she said, um, we both know that this body is not going to have any children, so I don't know why you're being so cruel to me.
Oh.
And I was like, where in the hell did that come from? What's going on with you? And she was like, sorry. She goes, I'm just in a bad mood. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
Well, their soul knows. I have no doubt about that. Their soul knows because I know Tyler had made comments. I've got so many parents on this journey have said that their parents have made, or their children had made comments. In fact, I was just telling a woman today. My sister had a friend, and her little boy passed away. He was just young, and something undiagnosed in his heart. But he had drawn a picture of his family. I think he was in kindergarten, and he drew a picture of his mom, his dad, his sister, and the dog. And the mom had said to him, well, where are you in this picture? And he suddenly said, oh, and he grabbed a pen and he put himself up in the sky. And then it was, I think, weeks later, then he passed away, and nobody knew he had this heart thing. So I feel that Tyler has shown me that it was part of a divine plan, a bigger picture. And I think if we all just, if we feel that, I think it definitely will help us, because there's people that have, they feel like they could have changed the outcome, and they hang on to guilt, and our kids don't want that for us. They want us to know that, hey, we are good, and we're going to be together. We're still together. You just can't see us, and there's a bigger plan here. So.
Oh, I agree with you. But I think it's also important for us to remember, I'm 11 years down the road. You're 10 years down the road. I think Lynn might even be farther down the road.
Yeah, she is.
When you come into the rooms, if you're lucky enough to come into the rooms in those early months, you are devastated. You're just absolutely devastated. And it's really important for us to remember, that there isn't any grief bigger for that person than what they're dealing with at that time. And the idea that, all of the things that we know now are possible might not be the kinds of things that we want to start talking about early on. People just need to be able to just get it all out there. And when most people, I think, truly feel, at least this has been my experience, and maybe you all feel differently, but most of the people that I've talked to tend to think nobody has ever felt as bad as I'm feeling right now. Nobody's child this child was so special. We had the best relationship. We were best friends. You hear that so often. And I think that it's really important to validate that for them. I think as you get some time, you tend to realize all of these relationships are huge. They're massive. And all of our kids are teaching us things from the other side. And hopefully many of us are willing to take that on. And because I tend to think if your child's death doesn't impact you in such a way that you are different in the world, I think you're missing out on something. I really do. Because
absolutely,
I don't know a whole lot of people that were just, super, super kind and always other people centered and always trying to help. All of us have done that to some extent. I just wasn't surrounded by people who made it their life's mission. And it certainly wasn't my life's mission, I'll be honest. I did nice things. I always bought the Thanksgiving dinner at the grocery store for the other families and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't center my days around just sharing what I've learned, whether you've lost your child or not. If you're willing to listen to what I've learned about the fact that life goes on and on and on, and everyone you've lost or think you've lost isn't lost at all. They're just waiting. There's waiting for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it is true. I mean, once we get further down the journey, it cracks our hearts open, or that's what we wanted to do. And I know that I I've always considered myself kind and compassionate, but now I feel like I'm kinder. I'm more full of love. I'm more full of compassion. When I see a homeless person, I think, gosh, I wonder what their story is. And I remember once giving some money, and I had a client with me because I was showing houses, and she yelled at me and said, "Why are you giving them money?" She said, "They're just going to go buy booze with it." And I said, she's like, "You're enabling them." And I said, "You know what? If that's what they need, but he has a story. He or she has a story, and um, if I could give them a little bit of a moment of happiness, that's what I want to do." And I feel that there's so many parents in the group that are just like this now. Their kids have cracked us open, and we realize that we're here to love and here to serve. And that's what I love so much about the group.
That's what they
So
teach us from the other side.
that's
That's
what they
what they
teach us.
teach us.
It's
Yes.
all about love. That's
Yeah.
what we hear. It's all about love. So tell me, Lisa, what is it that these listeners have to look forward to, but that they can be a part of? I know you have a new book coming.
Yeah. So I finished this book, God Winks and Amber Waves. I finished it late summer, but I decided to hold it until September 7th because that's my daughter's birthday. It would have been her 36th birthday. And I try to do something to honor her every year. And we've done so many different things. And I said, okay, you wanted me to write this book, so I'm going to wait until September 7th and I'll put it out there. And then on September 10th, 3 days after I put the book out there, I'm taking a shower and I got such a download from her that that's not what she wanted from me, that she wanted me to publish other people's stories. And so I was like, oh, that's awesome. Um, but I heard it with the sassiness and the wit and everything else that she says. And in my head, I mean, she just kind of gave it to me, and this one is God Winks and Amber Waves. The next one will be God Winks and Hearts Heal. And I'm inviting, because somebody can read what I've written and say, nice stories, crazy lady, kind of on the vulnerable side, that kind of thing. She's a little wacky. This stuff doesn't happen. But I just kind of got the download from her that let people tell their stories. Too many people don't tell their stories, even in their own family. And it doesn't have to be your child. It can be, I've already been receiving so many things. I've received, from a man in the UK who's in his 80s, and a kid like maybe 19 years old who lost his significant other. And I just have gotten the whole gamut. And I'm just I think that there's power in numbers and people saying, this is what happened to me. And to have that published, but also for people who have never told their story. Most people aren't going to write a book. Many people don't tell these things inside of their own families because they learn when they're not involved in a group like this, and when they're trying to heal in isolation, that I tried that. I tried to tell somebody and I got the eye roll or the ooh, 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 ooh. So they just kind of keep it inside. And so I've made a pledge to anybody who sends in. I will look at everything. I have ideas already of how the book's going to come together, but it's going to be God Winks and Hearts Heal, shared stories of signs and messages from our loved ones on the other side. And I'm going to divide it up in different ways. And I'm offering people, all I can offer people, because I'm doing this on my own, is you send me your story and we will use your first name and where you're from. That's the big thing. Amber wants me to make sure that I get where people are from. And she said, if people don't want to use their first name, tell them you'll make up a name or let them make up anything they want so that they can't be identified. But I'm going to separate them into all different kinds of things so that people don't get so locked in. This is a sign. A feather is a sign, or a dime is a sign, or a cloud is, people have, the signs are as unique as people are. And I think it would be a lot harder to dismiss 100 stories from 100 different people. And I have a lot of things that I did not put in this book purposefully, my first book, that I didn't put in purposefully, because one of the problems that I had after my daughter died was I had a terrible attention span. And I would start a book and I would be so into that book. But then I would hear about another book and I would get that other book and I would put the first one down and I'd start another book. And so I ended up having books all over my house, but none of them that were finished. Or if I went back to my book after sitting for like 2 days not reading it, I didn't comprehend what I had read. So I had to go back and keep reading. So I purposefully wrote this so that it could be read in one afternoon. It's not hard reading. It's really, really actually pretty light reading, but I still have so many things. I just didn't know that there was going to be another book. But all of that other stuff that I wanted to put in but didn't, and everybody's signs or things that they write to me. And then I'll just make sure that, I will get email addresses from everybody. And when the book is published next year, I will make sure that everybody that contributed to the book gets one.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know that Lynn has put your website, your email in there. So that is great. I think it's great. And I think our kids want us to get the word out. And I think that there's more people anymore that get what we get. I think that we're the lucky ones that understand
Yes.
Understand this. And but at some point, regardless of I mean, even if it's not our child, if it's not their child, which I think that that's got to be, like you said, the greatest loss. But we have loss. We have our parents will pass, our siblings, our animals. So it's so beautiful to know, to expand ourselves and realize that there is so much more, and there is no death. So
Yeah, absolutely.
no,
And I think that it's so, so difficult because it's just not in the natural order. We can accept things more in the natural order. But when our children die before us, but again, if you go back to the parallels that I was trying to draw between birth and death, it is the same. I mean, an unexpected pregnancy, an unexpected birth, a traumatic, these kinds of things aren't, they're the same. So it just happens across the board when things are out of the natural order, and you have the baby before the wedding or whatever. I mean,
right,
things happen like that. So
exactly.
it's life. And like I said, we didn't come here for perfection. We came here from perfection.
Yes, and we came here to learn and grow, and these are just part of our lessons. And as Mark Pitstick has always said, the harder, all of us are very evolved to take on this type of a lesson, this type of a classroom. So, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been wonderful. And again, Lisa's book, is it available on Amazon? I'm assuming it's available on Amazon.
It is available on Amazon. I'll show you the cover, right? I don't know if you can see.
It's beautiful.
God winking up there and amber waves.
God winks and amber waves.
Yeah, God winks and amber waves.
All right. Well, thank you. So if everyone wants to unmute, and this is recorded, so we will have it on the website later on today, probably early evening, for anybody who wants to log on. Thank you so much. And if everyone wants to say thank you to Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Carol.
Lisa. This was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.